Good morning. We come to the next lecture on draw frame, which is about the top rollers. So let us begin. So as you can see, this is a picture of the top rollers. You can see the synthetic covering that is there, and on this roller you can see the helical groove also in the rubber coating that has been applied. So let us learn about this in a little bit of a detail. Top rollers are covered with synthetic rubber coating. The coating may be hard or soft. These rollers, as we have mentioned before, are not positively driven. So they would be only running or rotating because of the frictional contact that they have with the bottom rollers, which would be positively driven. Soft coats surround the fiber strand to a greater extent. This diagram we'll see in the next slide. They tend to provide a greater guidance by surrounding the entire fiber strand, and especially when few fibers have to be drafted, this becomes more important, and it becomes very important at a stage like on a front roller of the ring frame. But the amount of advantage that these soft coats give, it also has an disadvantage that they wear out very quickly and would probably require a more frequent change. Hardness is specified in degrees Shore. This is a unit of measurement actually. So we just saw that there are helical grooves on the top roller surface. The reason for them being there is that they are helpful in transporting dust particles to the suction unit. So degrees hardness or degree Shore, they are classified like this. If it's a soft type of a cot, it would be between 65 to 75. If it is medium, the number would be 75 to 80, and a hard cot would be above 80. So let us see how this shore hardness is measured. It is a durometer is the instrument that is used for measurement of shore hardness. The video that I'm going to show you now is going to cover a whole range of materials, from very soft gel-like material to a very hard plastic. But it will clarify the entire range of materials and how they are measured, and what are the type of scales that are there used to measure the hardness of any kind of material that we come across. So let us just take a look at this.
Welcome back to another Tech Tip video from BJB. BJB manufactures a wide variety of plastic products, and navigating through them takes a basic understanding of the characteristics that differentiate them. One of the main features we use to do that is durometer. Quite simply, how hard the product is. We use two main shore hardness scales, Shore A and Shore D. Shore A is used on softer, more flexible elastomers, and the Shore D scale is used for hard rubbers up to rigid plastics. We also occasionally use the double-aught scale for extremely soft products like gels and anything extra squishy. Each scale ranges in value from 0 to 100. The higher the number, the harder the product is on that scale. The confusing thing about the different scales for many people is that the scales overlap. The best way to make sense of all this is to visually look at the scales and discuss the actual durometer measuring gauges. The gauges themselves have a couple of important differences. The spring force gets progressively higher as you go from the double-aught gauge, the Shore A gauge, and onto the Shore D gauge. Also, the point on the presser foot gets progressively sharper as you go from double-aught, Shore A, and onto the Shore D gauge. So now we can explain why we pick a spot on the overlapping scales to end one shore type and begin a new one. For example, the sharper point on the Shore D durometer would pierce the surface of many soft elastomers and give us false readings. This is why we end the Shore A product line at a 95A and continue on in the D scale. We wouldn't refer to a product being a 20 or 30 Shore D for exactly this reason. Having said that, we do have to note that a 90 Shore A product also measures to approximately a 40 Shore D, and a 95A a 45D. It can be a bit of a gray area. One is not right, and one is not necessarily wrong. In this case, we would look at a few other properties of a material to determine whether to put them in a Shore A or Shore D category, like elongation or tear strength. If you do happen to have a set of durometer gauges, you should know that accurate readings are taken on samples with a minimum thickness of 1/4 inch parallel to the surface, and readings are taken within 1 second of pressing down. Many gauges have an extra red dial that records the highest reading, so that can take out some of the guesswork. More info on durometer can be found on Wikipedia, and test methods are available through ASTM on their website. Let's examine some common objects that might relate durometer to something a little easier to understand. At the lower end of our board, we have the double-aught scale. Objects found here would be gel bike seats, gel shoe inserts, or chewing gum. Moving up a little bit into our lower Shore A scale, we have something that most of us can relate to, our skin. Now, depending on where you take the measurement, yikes, wrong gauge, that's the Shore D scale. As I was saying, depending on where you place the durometer, you'll probably come up with a number somewhere between about a 5 and 15 Shore A. One of our softer silicone mold materials, TC5024, is a 25 Shore A. This allows easy removal of parts with undercuts or extreme detail. A common pencil eraser comes in around 40A. Automobile tires range from about 60 to 70 Shore A. This range is actually one of our most popular durometers for flexible polyurethanes. Going up a little higher, we have a urethane skateboard wheel at 83A. This is your softer, longboard cruising style wheel. A hard vinyl garden hose measures about 90A. And then we start crossing over scales to roughly a 40 Shore D, which is in line with the hardness of a typical caster or shopping cart wheel. This harder ramp style skateboard wheel, meant for smooth surfaces, measures in at 53D. Injection molded plastics we're familiar with, like polypropylene plastic food containers or high density polyethylene, can vary from about a 60 to 70 Shore D. These are hard, tough, very high impact plastics that still exhibit a little bit of flex. ABS plastic ranges from about 75 to 82 Shore D. This rigid plastic is all around us in various forms of consumer products. And at the upper part of our board, at 85D, are very hard plastics like this CD case. Other hard plastics in this range are acetyl Delrin, nylon, and epoxies, just to name a few. As I said before, BJB manufactures an extremely wide variety of products, spanning these shore hardness ranges. All liquid, castable systems you can mold for a variety of part requirements. I'll leave you with one last thought about durometer and part thickness. Using these step samples, we can see how a flexible material might feel different in thinner sections versus thicker sections. The same goes for rigid materials. Something in a thicker section will feel extremely stiff, but in a thinner section might surprise you how much you can flex it. So keep this in mind when designing around your part's geometry and wall thickness. Well, that's it for now. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments below, or contact us by phone or email through our website. We're always happy to hear from our customers and help take the mystery out of materials.
Okay. So we have seen how softness or the hardness of the cords are measured, and now we have a fair idea of this particular shore hardness, which is shown here, 65 to 75, 75 to 80, where it will, which category it will fall into. So coming back to our next slide, let us see what is the relation between grip, friction field, and the softness of the cot that we have just studied. So if you take a look at this diagram here, what is shown is a hard top roller surface. Suppose if the top roller were also made up of steel, just like the bottom roller, um, this would be the diagram which we would look at. And suppose instead of a hard steel roller at the top, I would use a medium hard top roller, or if I could use a soft top roller, what would be the difference between these three cases here? So what we see is we already have learned that better the grip, the better is the spread of the friction field into the drafting zone. This is what we have known from our earlier lectures, which also leads to better guidance. So that means I should go for a better grip, which will lead to better guidance. So how this can be achieved is that, suppose let us look at these three cases here. Suppose we have a hard top roller which is made up of steel, then what we see is this hard roller will not bend around the sliver, and therefore it will not give a good grip at the edges. Maybe at the center, wherever the pressure is applied, it will give me a good grip. So consequently what you see is the friction field, which is there at the center. It is good, and as you go into the drafting zone, further into the drafting zone, what you find is a friction field reduces, and there's hardly any guidance that it can provide. So coming from the hard top roller, when you go to the medium hard top roller, what you see is it is able to give a little bit better guiding here, and the friction field will extend a little bit into the drafting zone, providing a better guidance as compared to the hard top roller. So when you come to the soft top roller, you see that the entire sliver is being protected or guided by the soft top roller, and the friction field spreads over into the drafting zone further away, and it will therefore provide the best kind of guidance to the fibers when you compare it with the other previous two cases. So this is how the relation goes between the grip provided by the soft top roller and the friction field, and then consequently to the guidance of the fibers. So we come to the topic on maintenance of the top cots or the top rollers. The top rollers require some sort of maintenance because as they run, whether they are slightly harder or soft cots, what happens is they will eventually wear out, and when they wear out, they would leave some kind of grooves into the top roller because of the sliver that is running continuously in between the roller pairs. So there is some kind of maintenance that you need to provide, and it is done by a process called as regrinding, and there would be a periodic schedule for this kind of regrinding. And what we use is discs or rollers that remove material from the surface, and it removes the layers in very very small amounts, maybe mm's or below that. So very small amount of layer is removed, and every time you take the cot for grinding, the cot thickness reduces, and once it becomes too thin, it loses its cushioning effect, or the effect to surround the fibers um, around and give a good guidance. So after a certain period, when the cot thickness becomes so low that it is not able to provide any more guidance to the fibers, it needs to be replaced. Sometimes there would be cracks or grooves that are developed on the surface, and because of this reason also we may have to go for regrinding. As you keep on grinding the top roller, the cot, the synthetic, the rubber surface, as you keep grinding it, it will keep on becoming harder, and the properties of this particular rubber will keep on changing over a period of time. And also due to the heat that is generated because of friction between during the drafting that is taking place, the properties change, and we may need a replacement periodically. So let us take a look at the cot grinding machine, which will give you an idea of how the grinding takes place. Okay, so we just saw the grinding of cots. So now we come to the next topic, that is drafting roller diameter. So in the previous lecture I told you that this diameter is also it has got some kind of theory behind it on how to choose them, what kind of diameter do we need to choose. So the choice depends upon four factors, the first one being the fiber length, of course. And fiber lengths for the cotton fiber that if we need to process ranges from 22 to 54 mm. And we should, while choosing the roller diameter, we must see to it that this fiber range is catered to. That means we are able to easily process this range without any change in the roller diameter, because changing the rollers every now and then for as soon as the fiber length for taken for processing changes becomes very inconvenient. The next point that we need to consider is the production rate, and there is some relation between the roller diameter and the production rate, which we will see shortly. The third point that you need to consider is the incidence of roller lapping. Roller lapping is nothing but the fibers tend to stick to the top roller surface, and they will remain there, and they will keep on collecting in the form of a lap on the top roller. And this also to a certain extent depends on the roller diameter that we choose. The fourth point is the frictional grip on the fiber. The roller diameter plays a little bit of role here too in providing the frictional grip on the fiber. So these are the 4 points which we are going to see in the coming slides, how the roller diameter choice is affected by these 4 factors. So you come to the diameter and the fiber length relation. So to try and understand this, we'll have to take some numbers, figures table. Um, we know that nip to nip distance between any two set of rollers should always be more than the fiber length. This is a fact and this should be followed very strictly, because if we keep the roller nip to nip, the nip means grip, if we keep this distance lower than the fiber length, then what will happen is the fiber will be gripped at both the roller nips, and since one of the rollers, the output roller, will be running faster than the input roller, the fiber will break. So we need to take care that the nip to nip distance should always be more than the fiber length. Another point that we should know here is that the fiber length is therefore, there's a limitation that any set of rollers has on the fiber length that it can process. So if you have a set of rollers and if you keep it too close, and in that case there is a fiber limitation that it can process. It cannot go beyond the nip to nip distance that this set of rollers can provide. So for example, you can see this set of rollers here. There are two pairs that are shown, and this is the nip line or the grip line for both these rollers. So this is the nip to nip distance that you can see here, which is actually equal to dr. Dr means diameter of one roller. Here we have assumed that both these diameters are same. So actually when you measure this distance from this point to this point, which is equal to this point to this point, actually from grip to grip, so it would be assuming that they are just touching the rollers. Then in that case, this would be the radius of the one roller and this would be the radius of the other roller. So when you add them up, this is the distance between nip to nip, and it would be equal to 2 times r, which is nothing but diameter of this roller. So nip to nip distance would be diameter of the roller, provided both the rollers are of the same diameter. So when we can just put this in the form of a table, where front roller diameter I'm assuming it to be 20, same or rather radius to be 20, same number I'm going to choose for the back roller radius, which is also 20. So the total distance between nip and nip would be 40, and of course this would be same as 2 times the radius of this any one roller. So the maximum fiber length that I can process on this kind of rollers with this kind of numbers or radii is that maximum would be 40. If I take a fiber which is say 45 in length, then in that case this kind of a setting of this pair of rollers would break the fiber. So what if I have to process a longer fiber? I will have to go for, suppose it is 48, I will have to go for a larger roller with diameter say 24. So when I add it up, this particular set, if I take 24 diameter roller, I will be able to process the fiber which is of length maximum is 48. So it is sum of the back roller radius and the front roller radius must be more than the fiber length. Assuming all roller diameters to be equal, roller diameter must be more than fiber length. This is what we just saw. Roller diameter, which is 2 times that of radius, should be more than fiber length. So there's one small note here. One has to consider that you have to give some kind of allowance here so that the rollers accidentally do not touch each other during running. That means we have first initially we assume that these rollers are almost touching just for understanding, but we cannot have this condition during running of the machine because they will touch each other and it might generate some sparks, or it's mechanically it is not right to have these rollers touching each other. So what we need to do is we need to keep some distance, maybe even if it is 2 to 3 between these rollers. So this roller I may have to, this pair I may have to set it a little bit away from the previous pair so as to avoid accidental touching of the rollers during running. So let us understand, if we were to give a sort of allowance, what would be the what would the equation look like? So if I keep those pairs of rollers a little bit at a distance, and the distance here from this roller back roller surface to the front roller surface, and that would be called as allowance, and the distance between the nip to nip of the roller would now be front roller or the back roller radius plus allowance plus front roller radius. This would be equal to the fiber length that I could process on this set of rollers. So whatever allowance I give could be added to the two radii of the front and the back rollers. So which would actually be equal to fiber length. If I add this up, it would be, assuming of course again that the radius of both back and front are same, it would be equal to roller diameter plus allowance. So therefore, if I were to just reshuffle this equation here, roller diameter would be equal to fiber length minus allowance. So if this is clear, let us just take a look at one table here which calculates what must be the roller diameter if my fiber length is this various, this range has been taken because cotton ranges from 22 to 54 so this 54 would be approximately maybe 2 to 1/4 of an inch. So assuming that we are giving a 3 allowance, what we see is, if we study this first row here, what we see is if the fiber length is 22, then the roller diameter in this case would be fiber length, which is 22 minus 3 as an allowance. My roller diameter should be around 19. If I were to process a fiber of 28 length, similarly 28 minus 3, I would require a roller diameter of 25 in diameter. And same for 32, I would require 29. If it's 38 minus 3, I would require 35. And if it is 54, I would require 51 roller diameter. So what we can conclude from this discussion here is that as I go on changing the fiber length that I need to process, I will have to go for a new set of rollers every time. And so that is what is being said here. From the above table, it is obvious that for processing the cotton fibers of different fiber lengths ranging from 22 to 54 we shall need rollers of diameter ranging from 19 to 51 assuming that I am giving a 3 allowance each time. So this is not very convenient in the industry. Therefore, a given set of rollers must be able to process a range of fiber lengths, and for this, what I might have to do is I might have to go for something called as roller setting. So this roller setting we will be discussing in one of the lectures later on, how to go about it. So we come to this slide where we see the advantages and disadvantages of a larger roller diameter. So when I have a large roller diameter, what are the advantages that it provides? And there may be some disadvantages which we have to look at. So first of all, in the previous slide, if you remember, we said the choice of roller diameter depends on four factors. The first being the fiber length, which we have just discussed. And now we look at the relation between roller diameter and the production or the surface speed that is there. So we already know this formula here. Surface speed is equal to pi dn, where n is the RPM of the roller. Therefore, for the same surface speed, if I want to keep the surface speed same, if d reduces, then n has to increase. So in the same way, if d increases, then n will have to be reduced. So from the mechanical point of view, a bigger diameter can therefore run at a lower RPM. So it is advantageous in the sense that because if I take a bigger diameter ruler, I get to reduce n, and therefore it will exert a lesser pressure or thrust on the bearings of the ruler. So mechanically, for me to have a larger diameter would be advantageous as against having a smaller diameter. So also when you come to the next point here, a larger diameter roller provides a lower curvature. That means it will, since it's large enough, the curvature will be very low, and mainly this happens, this is very important for the front roller, and this has a tendency to reduce the roller lapping, which is a defect in the sense that the fibers start sticking to the top roller surface, and the machine may get choked up, and we have to stop to remove the lapping, and it's not a good sign. So the third advantage or the third point that we had said earlier, that it also depends, the roller diameter choice depends on how much grip a roller diameter can provide. It has been seen that a larger diameter provides larger surface area of contact, and therefore it leads to better grip on the fibers. So these are the, it is all the points here tell us that we need to go for a larger diameter roller. But there is one disadvantage that we just saw earlier, that a larger roller, uh, what will happen is the moment you choose a larger roller, the nip to nip distance will increase, and the moment that happens, we will not be able to process very short fibers, because the short fibers will move through the system as if they are floating fibers, and the floating fibers lead to increase in drafting irregularity. So even if the nip to nip distance, when you increase by increasing the ruler diameter, we are able to process the longer fibers very easily, but the shorter fibers do not get as much guidance as it should be getting, and they will move through the drafting system in a very haphazard manner, and this will lead to more thick and thin places, and leading to increase in drafting irregularity. So although there are advantages, the larger roller diameter also has got this one big disadvantage. So always the roller diameter choice should be, a balance between these two. So this is all for today, and thank you very much.